On there, folks. Good evening. It's the Earthmaster here, back on this Saturday night, party night, February 18th, 2023. It's about 10:04 p.m. here along the West Coast in California. Latest quake shows a 2.9 over here in Romania. We have seen quite a bit of uptick in movement here across the area. Also down here, some further movement as well within a couple different rift zones of the African continent. Also some activity off the coast of Oregon, so 3.2 coming in as well as we speak. Let's go ahead and check out the latest activity here across this beautiful planet that we live on here. 3.2 out into the Pacific Ocean along the Blanco fracture zone. We do get quite a bit of earthquake activity here on occasion. This movement of the plate is a kind of a downward and upward trend here. That should, technically speaking, this should enhance a little bit of activity out here across the Cascadia, where it's relatively quiet for now. We didn't see any tremor activity over the last 24 hours. Nothing. Zip zero. So we'll watch for some potential movement here along the West Coast following this activity tonight. Northern California, aside from, Clear Lake Volcanic Field, things are awfully quiet. There's not a whole lot going on across the Northern California area, including Southern California as well. Just some very typical movement into the southern portion of the state. No major swarms, just very typical activity across the West Coast for now. Yellowstone National Park, not a whole lot going on there, but let's double check that and make sure. Where's your Yellowstone? Right here. See what's going on. Doesn't look like there's too much out here. We would have definitely seen it here listed on the graph, but looks fairly calm for now. Rest of the country as well, a little bit of movement in Oklahoma and Texas. And as I mentioned, most of the activity today has been confined to the Turkey area with quite a bit of aftershock activity and some movement out here around the Mediterranean region. Quite a few fives and some fours. And as listed here on the map, there's a lot more in this area, including that 2.9 up in Romania area. We're looking at a pretty good uptick here in some of the smaller magnitude quakes around Turkey. They did see a 5.0 in there earlier, as noted on the USGS map as well. Also a little bit of activity down here into the Republic of Congo, I believe. Yep, Democratic Republic of Congo. This is a rift zone that this earthquake activity struck on. It does have a lot of historical data. You can see this rift zone across the African continent here. Quite a bit of earthquake activity does occur within this region. And one day along the eastern African rift zone, this will connect up here to the Red Sea. And it'll put Kenya and Somalia, Ethiopia on or at least half of Ethiopia away from the mainland here of Africa. I don't know if I'll be around for that long or not. Probably not. But either way, very interesting activity out there today. And that was a 4.6 coming into this area, by the way, 14 kilometers deep. Eastern Afghanistan region did see some activity late last night. Nothing today on the USGS map, so a little quiet across that area. And the rest of the region here across the Philippines, Indonesia area, all seeing some smaller quakes listed up here on the map. One area I have noticed a little bit of increasing activity is along the Java Trench here. Notice that migration of activity stretching up here across a good portion of the Java Trench, mostly threes, but still some noticeable activity there today and recent within the last couple hours. 5.5 up around the southern end, or is it a 5 point? That's a 4.9 up here around the Philippines, coming in early this morning. It looks like. Let's see here. Actually, yeah, that just happened here. Pretty recent quake. 66.5 kilometers deep. Let's see if these guys have, yeah, they're kind of picking up on it here, it looks like. The USGS. Now, this is into the Philippine Trench, it looks like, down there just a little ways. into the subduction zone. A little bit of activity noted here across the band of sea areas to the west. Some fours kicking off some deeper movement as well into that area. Again, the western Pacific up here, northwestern Pacific, all quiet. And a look at the earthquake 3D model here shows that continued quietness. It's just rather odd, folks. I mean, I'm a little concerned up here. This is a major subduction zone with many different plates affecting the subduction zone. All sorts of movement, and we haven't seen any. It's a little odd. Very odd. One earthquake way up north here from last night, but that was about the only one. 4.3, 89 kilometers deep into the very northern end of the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench. A little bit of activity out here along the Aleutian Trench. Some surface earthquake activity about 10 kilometers deep for a 3.0. Most of the movement across the Cook Inlet area relatively light, but we did see a 4.0 coming in earlier this evening with a little bit of increasing activity northeastward up through the Cook Inlet area. The Big Island of Hawaii, most of the activity here looks like it's confined to the Pahala area. No unusual movement, and in fact only 11 earthquakes here to report tonight for the Big Island. All right, stretching down here through the Vanuatu area and the Tonga Trench. Whole lot of deeper movement here taking place earlier this morning and a little bit this afternoon as well. We did have another deep earthquake of 5.4, 548 kilometers deep. This comes following some deeper movement here into the Tonga Trench. A little bit of earthquake activity just upstream here, but still kind of deeper movement here. 4.4, 343 kilometers deep. Waiting for some potential surface activity here. I'm talking about some deeper, or not deeper, but more shallower, larger scale activity. Down along the Kermadec Trench, one earthquake from late last night. Should be dropping off here pretty soon. It is after 10 o'clock here along the west coast. Aside from that, let me take a look here at the Earthquake 3D Globe and see what we got listed. Not a whole lot of newer activity. It looks like maybe some fours, deeper movement fours within the last 24 hours not showing up on the USGS map. So we'll turn to the good folks there at the GeoNet servers. And looks like 19 minutes ago we got a 2.2. Let me make sure this is the most recent update here. All right, so a couple more smaller quakes listed in North Island, New Zealand area. There's that 4.2 Kermadec Trench area. 3 hours ago, 234 kilometers deep. Aside from that, most of the movement here listed looks relatively minor. 3.7 just off the Alpine Fault, South Island. Very shallow earthquake about 8 hours ago. So, yeah, a little bit of activity up north along the Kermadec Trench. And the volcanic drums here across the New Zealand area looks relatively stable. Not for sure what this is over here along this region. But could be interference. I don't know. Could be wind. Good possibility. Doesn't look volcanic, though, as far as tremor or earthquake activity goes. All right, let's see what else. Here's one earthquake down here. Actually, we had a couple of them throughout the day today that we haven't seen in a while. Some movement along the South Sandwich Trench with a 4.6 and a 5.7 coming in. Definitely a little bit of uptick in movement here. Now notice the 4.6 earlier this morning. Deeper earthquake, 35 kilometers deep, followed up by some much shallower, larger scale activity upstream here of the subduction zone. It's about the northern end. But this is just a prime example here of deeper earthquake movement adding strain and pressure upstream. This is where we look for the larger ones to occur. Of course, 2021, we did have a 8-pointer kick off down here and also a large 7-pointer. So this area has seen quite a bit of earthquake activity historically, but over the past couple weeks, it's been relatively quiet until now. A little bit of movement kicking up there. That is the subduction zone of the South Sandwich Trench. The Atlantic Ocean, we've got a 4.7 coming in early this morning, it looks like, around many of these fracture zones. It's pretty much like a zipper, if you will, out here in the Atlantic Ocean with that 4.7, creating some new land out there for us to visit one day. All right, let's see, what else do we have across the area? Puerto Rico, let me see what we got here. Of course, we had that one earthquake here in Costa Rica area this morning, just after midnight, late last night, 5.2. I don't see any other earthquake activity listed here across the area, according to the USGS, and it looks like maybe there's been a couple small aftershocks, a 3.0 and a 2.0, 2.9 within that area of Costa Rica. A little bit of deeper activity kicking up here into the Puerto Rico region. Let's see what we got here. Latest earthquake shows a 3.6 way down there. 109 kilometers deep. A rather odd earthquake for this area near the Mona Passage area. There's a couple different subduction zones that sit around here. The Puerto Rico Trench here to the north and east, and the Mariotos Trough. This area is getting squeezed and uplifted and subducted. It's a very interesting plate dynamic here for this region. A little bit of movement up around the Puerto Rico Trench as well. I still think there's a possibility, considering all the movement we've seen here over the last, I think it's been the last 30 days or so. Some of the larger scale activity within the vicinity, to see maybe something potentially a little bit on the more active side. The largest one looks like a 6.1 that occurred down here. Relatively deep, 162 kilometers. And that one coming in January 20th. But we'll watch that area around the Puerto Rico Trench. South America, Ecuador did see some activity earlier this afternoon, including a 4.3, 10 kilometers deep, relatively shallow earthquake. It was, looks like it's inland here. It doesn't look like it's around any major populated area. Further down south into the Chile area, looking at a 5.3 up along the subduction zone. Now this is where we tend to see some, excuse me, got hiccups all of a sudden. This is where we normally see some larger scale activity up along this area. And considering all the deeper movement quakes here recently, and I'm talking about downstream of this area, if you can picture in your mind, here's a subduction zone, right? So this whole plate area, you got the Nazca plate, right? Being subducted underneath the South America region. Let me show you guys here real quick. And I should have this keyed up by now. I definitely will here soon. The general plate movement. I just want to show you guys this map again. Nazca plate right here. That is being subducted underneath the South American region there. South America plate to the east. And that is a major zone for some stress, and some of the largest earthquakes ever recorded take place here along the Peru-Chile Trench. Of course, including that 9.5 back in the 1960s. So, gotta watch this area, considering all the deeper movement that we've seen. Take a look at this here real quick. Some of this activity downstream here. You got to remember, on the right side of the screen from this area, the shallow earthquake activity, that's where we see some of this deeper movement, all roughly below the 100-kilometer level or so. And that is adding some further strain upstream of the Peru-Chile Trench area. I'll continue to watch that. Let's see here. I think that's about it for earthquake activity. Let's check out solar weather. Yeah, that was a complete dud for the G2 forecast there. That was a complete failure, I think, in terms of forecasting. But occasionally things like that do happen. Now, we do have a potential glancing blow from that major X flare that popped off here, the X 2.2. That really, that's basically the strongest flare of this solar cycle. It did provide there's actually a little map here. Let's see. A little graph showing that we will get a potential glancing blow. Earth here is in the yellow, which is right about here. A little bit zooming in. It looks as though, man, it really, well, it's hard to tell with these. These are just generated computer models showing some of the, well, that just disappeared. Not for sure what happened there. Does show kind of where the path may be for the CME that was produced from this massive explosion there with the X.2 involved. 2.2, I should say, because that's a little bit of a difference. There is the image of that massive explosion, and we're kind of on the western edge here. If you talk about the western edge of the sun, we're talking about over in this region. And again, we're just getting a glancing blow. If this thing was head on to us, we would probably be talking about a very strong G3 storm. But unfortunately, and I say unfortunately because I'm a sky watcher, I love the auroras, and I still have yet to see them. I would love to see them down here in Northern California. It would probably take a little bit stronger of a system, or at least a stronger of a CME than what we've seen with this X 2.2. But nonetheless, it would light up the skies like crazy for the viewers up in the northern tier states. So that G2 storm that was predicted last night into portions of today never popped up. And I was looking at the data here all day, and nothing came in. Everything was relatively stable, as noted here across the real-time solar wind stream. That includes the density, the speed. Whenever we look at a CME incoming, all this will be elevated here. And of course, adjustments will be made there to the BT component. But yeah, that never materialized. We'll wait and see how this system, this next CME, comes in on the 20th. They're predicting, or at least forecasting, potentially on the, let's see what these guys are saying. The NOAA Space Weather Prediction Center shows the X2 CME delivering a glancing blow to our geomagnetic field by February 20th. So it looks like beginning tomorrow and into Monday is when we could see that glancing blow, so to speak. But I think, I don't know. We were definitely, when this X flare kicked off, obviously it's way over here on the northeastern side of the sun. So got to remember, even if you have a full halo, with this position of the sunspot and that far away, I think it's just going to be very, very minimal at best that we'll see any type of space weather conditions. And that's just my observation. These guys don't have anything yet for the 19th or the 20th. Looks like just unsettled conditions here over the next night and tomorrow night. But man, it's quiet. There's not a whole lot of potential going on right now. So we'll see how this plays out with this incoming CME with the glancing blow. All right, now, sunspot activity. There is the ginormous X 2.2 flare, the strongest of the solar cycle since December 2019. It's kind of impressive, right? Long duration X flare. Since then, we've seen only minor C flare activity with a continual decline in the flaring. But don't let your guard down. These things can pop up out of the blue. 99% chance for a C flare, 50% chance for an M flare, X flare at 15. Proton event elevated at 25%. So let's take a look at the magnetic structure of the most recent image here. Let me bring this in a little bit more closer. There we go. Thank you very much. Yeah, there's still, notice this area here outside of the blue, indicating a very dynamic setup of the magnetic structure here. That's That's definitely of interest. I think it does harbor some potential for some stronger M flares. X flare probability, I'm not 100% certain, but it's definitely worthy to watch that very closely. A couple of these other sunspots here are growing as well. This one here looks a little bit more favorable for some stronger flaring, but I think our main threat so far to watch is going to be this area up here, which is 3229. That is the one that produced the X flare, X2.2. That is the star of the show, so to speak. There is a new sunspot down here on the southeastern limb of the sun, 3230. The most recent imagery here shows, well, kind of looks similar to these other ones here. Just got a orange and a green area, red and green, I should say. Doesn't look quite as complex as this area up on the northeastern side. But either way, a little bit of new development coming around the bend. But I think our main threat is going to be this guy up here, 3229. And a look at the UV filter. Yeah, this area down here is definitely amping up in some further increasing activity. But either way, we'll continue to watch this and see how it plays out, folks. Definitely getting active, right? I'm glad we're entering into that solar maximum here in a couple years. All right, let's see what else is there to chat about. I think that's about it. As far as weather activity goes, man, there's some cold air coming down from Canada. I got to show you guys this here real quick. Let's go to the assemble, go to the GEPS, I should say. Now, this is going to be on a little bit faster time frame here for the hours, but we are looking at a massive low pressure system and some very cold air coming down into the west coast. This is going to bring some very low snow levels to areas around Oregon, Northern California, and of course areas of the Intermountain West regions. Let me bring up the windy map here. I kind of want to show you guys some predicted rainfall totals. By the way, yes, that is accurate. I'm looking on my weather station here. I got 39.7, but here for the Chico area, Northern California, yeah, 39 degrees. I'm not sure what we're expecting tonight, but either way, it's a little chilly. But nothing like what it's going to be here towards the end of next week, of this week coming up. Let's go to the new snow accumulation here. Now we're looking at the ECM European model WF. This shows new snow across Northern California. Look at the valleys. If you're not too familiar with the area of Northern California, these areas almost always see snow in the wintertime. But we're showing snow along the areas of the coastline as well, which is rather odd. I don't know if that's accurate or not. 12 inches. That's that would be crazy for that to happen out there along the coastline. But here, even in the Sacramento Valley, we're talking about an inch or so. Here around the Chico area, 3 inches of snow. That's unheard of for this area, but it's a very cold system dropping out of the northeastern area. Regions around Oregon, Medford area, 21 inches up there in the mountains. In the valley here, looks like maybe 12 inches or so. These guys tend to get more snow than we do in the Sacramento Valley, but either way, that's quite impressive for some snowfall totals, according to the ECMWF model. Now, the GFS model still paints a little picture here. We got a couple different weather models in agreement with some new snow accumulating. Now, this is a little on the chaotic side. If we have 8 inches of snow along Interstate 5 around Corning and Orland, California drivers, I don't know. I see how they drive, and I'm not going to disagree that there's some crazy drivers out here. But mix in some snow and some icy conditions, we're talking about chaotic driving conditions out here along Northern California for Interstate 5. Now, that's a GFS model. Around the Chico area, these guys are predicting 7 inches of snow. This is I'm going to make sure I got plenty of coffee and maybe even a couple Red Bulls to cover this area, to cover this potential storm coming up next week, because this is not common at all for us here in the Sacramento Valley. Areas around Willows, they're saying like 6 inches of snow. Goodness. We'll see how this plays out, folks. But either way, when you have different weather models in agreement, that's looking more and more likely of seeing some snowfall. There's that deep low pressure trough here, centered over the Great Basin area, but man, it's bringing in some cold, very cold air, and it expands. Look where it ends up here over the west coast. So this is, depending on the amount of at least the moisture in the air, depending on how much moisture is in the air, will define on how much snowfall we get here into the Sacramento Valley. But goodness, I'm excited because I haven't seen snow here in the Sacramento Valley since I was a kid, roughly back in 1987. 88, we had about 3 inches of snow just north of Sacramento there where I lived. But goodness, I would love to see that. Wouldn't be good for driving out there on the roads, but I would not be putting myself in a dangerous position out there with people driving, because it's not me I'm worried about, it's other drivers. Either way, there's that cold low pressure system. After that, these guys over here along the East Coast are going to cook. You guys are looking at some very warm 70 and 80 degree temperatures stretching up into the eastern portion of the country for February. Goodness. All right, so the longer range models here show a little bit neutralizing across the majority of the country. Still some dominant cold pressure systems out there. And that goes about until the first week of March. Look at the let's go over here to the precipitation here. Let me see where I'm at. Why am I not seeing that up here? Why? Oh, there we go. It's been a crazy day, let me tell you. I want to check out the West Coast here, regions at West Coast, and we're going to look at some systems coming in. There's our very cold system dropping in. Oh, look at that. That's where most of the cold air is coming in there. There's a split line of rain and snow right across the Sacramento Valley, so we'll see how that plays out. After that, we got a little bit more warmer systems coming in towards the end of February. We definitely need that rainfall right there, definitely. And back behind that, some more low pressure systems. So I'm glad to see this. As we head into March, it looks like it could be a very wet and snowy end of February and beginning of March here for California and the Pacific Northwest. We'll definitely take it. Let me tell you, we will take it. All right, folks, I am gonna jump off here. Have a good night. Make sure we're not missing anything else here that's been happening since the weather yakking 2.8 Turkey. And we'll just kind of see how this plays out today or tonight. Java Trench with the activity over the last couple hours, and general uptick here across the Romania and the Turkey area. All right, guys, have a good day. Have a good night wherever you're at. And we're going to sign off here. Catch you guys a little bit later tomorrow. Have a good one.